racism and discrimination remain persistent issues across the United States, with certain states exhibiting more concerning trends than others. In this video, we will examine the 10 states that, according to recent data from reputable sources like the Public Religion Research Institute and the Southern Poverty Law Center, have demonstrated the highest levels of racist attitudes and discriminatory practices. It's important to note that identifying the most racist states is a complex undertaking, as racism can manifest in various forms and is often deeply rooted in a state's history, policies, and societal norms. However, through a careful analysis of multiple data sources and research studies, a clearer picture emerges of the states where racism appears to be more prevalent. The data sources used in this analysis include the Public Religion Research Institute's American Values Atlas, which tracks attitudes and beliefs related to race, immigration, and identity across the United States. The Southern Poverty Law Center's annual The Year in Hate and Extremism report, which maps the presence and activities of hate groups throughout the country. Academic studies, such as a 2021 paper published in the American Sociological Review, which examined the relationship between state-level policies and racial resentment. By examining these troubling trends, we can gain a better understanding of the challenges faced by marginalized communities, identify areas that require greater intervention, and work towards a more equitable and inclusive future for all. State number 1, Montana. Montana ranks as one of the most racist states in the United States, largely due to the persistent and often violent discrimination faced by the state's indigenous population. According to the Public Religion Research Institute, Montana has one of the highest levels of racial resentment towards Native Americans, with a significant portion of the population expressing negative attitudes and beliefs about this community.
One of the most pressing issues in Montana is the disproportionate number of missing and murdered Indigenous women, a crisis that has long been overlooked and under-addressed by state authorities. Families of victims have shared heartbreaking stories of their loved ones disappearing without a trace, and the lack of meaningful action to investigate these cases and protect Indigenous women has only served to exacerbate the trauma and distrust within these communities.
State number 2, Indiana. Indiana has a troubling history of racist attitudes and the presence of hate groups, ranking as the second most racist state in the country. According to the Southern Poverty Law Center, Indiana is home to a significant number of active hate groups, including white nationalist organizations and neo-Nazi groups, which have regularly organized rallies and demonstrations aimed at spreading their hateful ideologies.
The presence of these hate groups has had a profound impact on the lives of marginalized communities in Indiana, particularly Black and Latino residents, who have reported feeling increasingly unsafe and unwelcome in their own neighborhoods. One particularly alarming incident occurred in 2020, when a group of armed white supremacists threatened and intimidated peaceful protesters in the city of Bloomington, underscoring the urgent need for greater intervention and accountability measures to address the rise of hate-based activities in the state.
State number 3, Idaho. Idaho has long been associated with white supremacist and anti-government extremist movements, earning it the dubious distinction of being the third most racist state in the country. The state's reputation for intolerance and discrimination has been further cemented by the presence of numerous hate groups, as well as high-profile incidents of racial violence and intimidation.
One particularly troubling example is the recent rise of hate-based harassment and attacks targeting the state's growing Latinx population. According to reports, Latinx residents in Idaho have faced increased levels of discrimination, verbal abuse, and even physical assaults, often perpetrated by individuals or groups with ties to white nationalist ideologies.
State number 4, Louisiana. Louisiana's history of racism and systemic discrimination is well documented, and the state continues to grapple with these issues in the present day.
According to the data, Louisiana ranks as the fourth most racist state in the United States, with a significant portion of the population expressing negative attitudes towards racial minorities, particularly Black and Latino residents.
One of the most pressing concerns in Louisiana is the ongoing struggle for racial justice in the criminal justice system. Studies have shown that Black individuals in Louisiana are disproportionately targeted, arrested, and incarcerated, often facing harsher sentences for similar offenses compared to their white counterparts. State number 5, Arkansas. Arkansas has a long and complicated history of racial tensions and discrimination, earning it the 5th spot on the list of the most racist states in the country.
The state's troubled past includes events such as the 1919 Elaine race riot, one of the deadliest episodes of racial violence in American history, and the ongoing struggles of the state's significant African American population to achieve true equality and justice.
In recent years, Arkansas has also seen a resurgence of hate-based activities, with the Southern Poverty Law Center reporting an increase in the number of active hate groups operating within the state.
These groups have targeted minority communities, including the state's growing Latinx and Muslim populations, with harassment, intimidation, and even physical attacks.
State number 6, West Virginia. West Virginia, despite its reputation as a largely rural and predominantly white state, has also been identified as one of the most racist states in the country. According to the data, West Virginia exhibits high levels of racial resentment, particularly towards African Americans, and has a troubling history of discriminatory policies and practices. One of the most concerning issues in West Virginia is the ongoing struggle for equal access to education and economic opportunities for the state's minority populations. Studies have shown that Black and Latino students in West Virginia face significant barriers to educational attainment, with higher dropout rates, lower test scores, and fewer opportunities for post-secondary education compared to their white peers. State number 7, Missouri. Missouri has long grappled with the legacy of racism and discrimination, and recent data suggests that the state continues to be one of the most racist in the United States. The state's troubled history includes the infamous Dred Scott decision, which denied citizenship rights to African Americans, and the 2014 unrest in Ferguson, which brought national attention to the ongoing struggles of the Black community in Missouri. One of the most pressing issues in Missouri is the disproportionate impact of police brutality and excessive force on communities of color. Studies have shown that Black residents in Missouri are far more likely to be the targets of police stops, searches, and use of force, often with devastating consequences. State number 8, Michigan. Michigan, a state often associated with its industrial and automotive heritage, has also been identified as one of the most racist states in the country. The data suggests that Michigan exhibits high levels of racial resentment, particularly towards African Americans and immigrants, and has a troubling history of discriminatory policies and practices. One of the most pressing issues in Michigan is the ongoing water crisis in the city of Flint, which disproportionately impacted the city's predominantly Black and low-income residents. The failure of state and local authorities to address the lead contamination in the city's water supply, as well as the delayed response and lack of accountability, have been widely criticized as a clear example of environmental racism and the disregard for the well-being of marginalized communities. The data presented in this video has painted a sobering picture of the states that have been identified as the most racist in the United States. From the heartbreaking stories of Indigenous communities in Montana struggling with marginalization, to the continued presence of hate groups in Indiana, these findings underscore the urgent need for a concerted effort to address the root causes of racism and discrimination. As we move forward, it is crucial that we continue to shed light on these issues, amplify the voices of marginalized communities, and work tirelessly to create a future where every individual, regardless of their race or ethnicity, can thrive and feel safe, respected, and valued. This will require a multifaceted approach involving education, policy reforms, community engagement, and a steadfast commitment to dismantling the deeply ingrained biases and prejudices that have plagued these states for far too long. I encourage you all to get involved in local and national initiatives aimed at promoting racial justice and equity. Together we can transcend the divisions of the past and build a more just and inclusive America. Let's work towards a future where the diversity of our nation is celebrated, and everyone has the opportunity to live, work, and thrive without fear of discrimination or prejudice.